Well, we are all working as fast and as expeditiously as possible to create one bill that has everything that we need in it in a reconciliation process so that we avoid that 60 vote margin that's necessary generally on the Senate side. If we do it under reconciliation, we can send it over to the Senate. All we need is 50+1 votes to get it passed. If we follow the budget reconciliation instructions appropriately, which is got to be tied to revenues and got to be tied to spending. And we think we can do that and send the president a big, beautiful bill that provides for our defense and for our border and for our energy policies that need to be changed, and then also reduce spending, keep debt in check, and provide for long-term stability of our economy and growth in our economy.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The App. The App is our podcast. It has nothing to do with computers. It stands for ArkLaTex People and Politics. And you just saw a soundbite from a previous interview we did with East Texas Congressman Nathaniel Moran, talking about the funding bill. And we're going to bring in our congressman today, our special guest with us live on The App, Congressman Nathaniel Moran. Congressman, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Jeff, great to be with you. I'm glad that I'm not the only one without a tie today. So it's no tie Friday.
It's casual Friday, of course, my friend. You got your sign there behind you. It looks great. Listen.
Thanks. It really is great to be with you, and appreciate what you're doing to keep folks plugged into what we're doing in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. Now, I understand congratulations are in order. You just received a nice appointment from Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to the Ethics Committee, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure if congratulations or condolences is in order for that appointment, but I really am honored that Speaker Johnson would allow me the opportunity to serve on that committee, one that's really important to the professional conduct of members of Congress. It's not about what we stand for. It's not about Democratic or Republican principles on the substantive issues that we're voting on, but it's really about how we behave as members of Congress, and it's about the honor and integrity of the institution itself. Only 5 members on the Republican side and 5 members on the Democratic side, and so very pleased and honored that the Speaker would ask me to do that, and certainly if he's going to ask, I'm going to say yes and be willing to step up.
Well, I've known you for a little while now, and I think if there's anybody that would be a good fit for that committee, I think it would be you. So congratulations.
Thanks. I appreciate that. We're going to do our best to remain steady and consistent, and to hold accountability across the board for Democrats and Republicans both, to make sure that our behavior is in line with the principles and the values of America. And for me, the congressional district, First District of Texas, the principles and values of the First District of Texas, which I think are the principles and values of most Americans.
Well, I would agree with that, but is that becoming a little bit more challenging right now with the way politics are being played in Washington?
Yeah, it is. There's folks all the way around. It doesn't matter what part of the political spectrum you're on, that their goal in life is power, prominence, and position. And in order to achieve that, there's a lot of folks in Washington, D.C. that want to find every camera that they can to get in front of, and they're more interested in sound bites rather than sound policy. And frankly, that's not what I'm there for. I don't think that what East Texans and Northeast Texans want out of me. They would prefer sound policy rather than sound bites.
That was a good. I like that phrase, sound policy rather than sound bites. I hope we give them a little more than sound bites on this podcast today. Let me talk to you a little bit about. We heard you speaking about getting into the funding bill. That was before everything happened. The showdown happened, and you were the Republicans hung together to get the continuing resolution passed. Where do things go from here now?
Well, we have been hard at work on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the substantive committee of jurisdiction that I'm on that relates to our reconciliation process. We've been hard at work for months, even before the 119th Congress started, going provision by provision and, frankly, possibility by possibility of where we can cut taxes, where we can save spending within our committee of jurisdiction. And let me just give you a few examples of that. Congress has a schedule of time frames when they're supposed to be up there, and we're supposed to be voting. And we've spent a lot of time up there this in D.C. this first couple of months. But the Ways and Means Committee has appropriately set work schedules for before when everybody else shows up and after everybody else leaves. We're there before and after, again, going really provision by provision and proposal by proposal to determine what needs to be in this reconciliation tax package and what does not. And that meant a couple of weeks ago, we spent 9 hours on a Monday going through stuff. And then when everybody left on Thursday, we spent another 8 or 9 hours then going through things on the back end. And we've got several more of those days scheduled coming up because the rest of the conference is depending on the Ways and Means Committee to come out with a really great tax package that extends the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act provisions, the economic drivers that we saw after that package got done. They're about to expire, and we need to make sure that they continue. And then the president had set forth a number of tax policies during his campaign that we want to honor and we want to make sure are included as well. So trying to get those involved and get one big, beautiful bill back out as the president has asked us to do, super important.
Can you talk about, I know the optics of it and all the things that we see was what happened with the showdown when Chuck Schumer, I guess, if you want to say caved, but agreed to, support the Republican funding bill through, I believe it's September. That's what we see on the surface. All the things that go on behind the scenes, that's the committee you're on, right? That gets us to that point.
It is, and the appropriate. So we're the fundraising committee. That's what Ways and Means is the ways and means by which we raise revenue to do the things in government that you're supposed to do. The appropriators are the committee that decide then how that money gets spent. And so the appropriators have done their work to figure out where do we need to cut and where do we need to save on the spending side, although we're going to be doing a lot of that coming up in the reconciliation process. But on the annual spending side, that's the appropriator's job. The lesson to be taken from our recent work on the continuing resolution is this, that when Republicans stick together, we can get things done. And we put Schumer in a really difficult box because he knew he could not shut down the government if we sent him a clean CR. What we knew was we had bigger fish to fry at this moment than to figure out and negotiate a deal on appropriations, which cannot skirt around the 60-vote threshold in the Senate like reconciliation can. We wanted to get back to the reconciliation tax package bill and the long-term spending cuts that need to happen. In order to do that, we kind of had to clear the table this year of appropriations for the annual appropriations package. It's not the preferred method. What we need to do is pass the 12 appropriations bill. That's what we really need to do. But given the fact that we're 6 months into the fiscal year and there's just about 6 months left, and the president's priority is get the reconciliation and tax bill and long-term spending measures done. This was the play we needed to make. Yeah. And the other thing it did is it kept the government open, which usually you don't want to see. I mean, you don't want to see government frittering away things, but right now we're seeing great things happening with the DOGE activities and the cutting of fat left and right day after day. We don't want that to go away. We want that momentum to continue. We want to continue the streamlining of the federal government, which is what is actually happening right now. And had the government shut down, it would have been problematic for our DOGE efforts.
Well, and these DOGE efforts are amazing, also very disturbing, and all the stuff they're turning up that's just, it's the old cliche, waste, fraud, and abuse. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And, this is why elections are really important, because as the executive branch, they're going to have some discretion on how to spend some money. And we, as a conservative viewpoint, when we are out of the executive branch and we have a liberal, socialist, Democrat like we did with Biden in the last 4 years, when they're in the executive branch, they've got the ability and the discretion to use some of those funds in a manner that we would never ever prescribe, that we would never want. But you think about it even on a local level. Here's a great analogy for that: is when you do your budgets for business, you'll set aside a supply line for that budget,
Mm-hmm.
and within that supply line, then whoever's spending that, they might spend it on staplers, or they might spend it on paper clips, or they might spend it on paper or pencils or pens, whatever you need. So every budget has that same kind of level of discretion. There's a category, and within that category, then the people that are authorized to spend that money can spend it within certain discretionary ways. And at the end of the year, if you find out, boy, we bought 10 cases of pencils. We didn't need 10 cases of pencils. Well, that's problematic. But in the budget, that executive that had that authority actually had the authorization to do that. They just mishandled the money. And that's what we've seen. DOGE got to come in, and they now have a quick, deep look at all the books and are bringing this stuff out and saying, look, this is the way the executive branch in the last 4 years frittered away and frauded and
Yeah.
wasted so many taxpayer dollars, and it's just not the right way to use our taxpayer money.
It is a staggering amount of money, Congressman. I mean, it really is embarrassing for some of the things that money was spent on, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it certainly was. Especially, and a lot of things we knew and that we had already shined the light on, like DEI and the transgender stuff and the men's and women's sports stuff and the pushing of these social agendas around the United States through all the governmental agencies and governmental departments that we hated as conservatives, and we oppose, and we pass legislation to try to push back on. But of course, then it just dies in the Senate. Again, this is the reason why we need elections to go the way they should go at the executive level, on the Senate side and the House side, because when you don't have that trifecta like we have right now, there can always be a blockade to the things that need to get done. That's why it's really important for us to do a good job these next 2 years, because how we do in the next 2 years will determine whether or not we hold on to the House for the final 2 years of President Trump's presidency. And consider that. What's going to happen if we have just 2 years to support the president, and then we lose the House in 2 years? It would be unthinkable.
Yeah.
And we don't want that to happen. If we do a good enough job these first 2 years, it won't happen. We'll keep the House, we'll keep the Senate, and certainly we've got the White House we know for the next 4 years. We don't want President Trump to have to deal with impeachment inquiry after impeachment inquiry after investigation after committee hearing after committee hearing from the House of Representatives controlled by the Democrats in 2 years. We don't want to see that happen, which means we better get these first year and a half right, the first 2 years right, so we can get 2 more years.
Well, it certainly has started out what most people would consider to be right. But let me ask you about DOGE and what's going on with that. Like we said, they're uncovering all kinds of waste, fraud, and abuse. But I don't want to ask about that. I want to ask about the reaction to it, the reaction to Elon Musk and what's going on. This is despicable, what's going on with the attacks on all of his Tesla dealerships, isn't it?
Yes, it's absolutely despicable, and it's a great example of the difference of how Republicans deal with political controversy, and how, frankly, a lot on the left deal with political controversy. When you look historically, especially in the last 10 years, about how leftist activists deal with their disagreement on the political stage, it's with violence. It's with property destruction, it's with personal destruction, it's with kind of overreaching restrictions from the federal government and imposition by the federal government down on free speech. It is not with just winning the debate on substance. And that's what Republicans have been about, and that's what Republicans should be about, is continuing to win the debate on substance, and doing it in a way that is is consistent with the First Amendment, but also consistent with our responsibilities to treat others with dignity, to treat property and person with respect, and not to harm property and person in the midst of all that. Seemingly, the liberals tend to lose their minds and get out there and they want to burn something down, or they want to destroy some piece of property, or they want to harm some individual that's involved. And we've seen that violence, even as high as the presidential candidate, happen in the last 6 months. Yeah. And it's not the way our political debate should function.
Well, it seems like the new Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is not having any of this, and she's going to try to nip this stuff right in the bud, right?
Yeah, I think there's no question that everybody in the administration has probably been given the instruction, nip it in the bud, and that's nip everything in the bud. There's no waiting going on. They're moving forward 100 miles an hour. And when you talk about the DOGE cleaning that's going on, I've used this example before. It's like spring cleaning. You gotta pull it all out of the garage. You got to sweep the whole garage out. Then you got to look at everything that you've pulled out and decide that half that stuff probably needs to go to the dump, and half the stuff can go back in the garage. That's good stuff. What most administrations have done in the past, frankly, even the first Trump administration, is, we come in and we try to just sweep around the things that are existing, and we don't move everything out of the garage. That's what's happening right now, is everything's getting moved out. And then we'll find the good stuff that needs to go put back in and how to kind of rebuild it. But there needs to be some deconstruction before we reconstruct the good that's there.
See, that's an analogy even I can understand. I like that garage analogy. Sometimes it's hard for me.
I can tell you, I understand it, because when my wife asks me to do spring cleaning in the garage, I know better than to just go out there and sweep around the stuff that's in the garage. I know I gotta really get out there.
Same here. I plead the fifth on that one. But anyway, it seems like the next level of pushback, I guess, against the administration and the Republican Party and what's going on, and that's these federal judges at lower levels. I mean, this is crazy. How is it that these lower level judges are able to control what goes on from the President of the United States? What role does Congress play in getting involved in this?
Yeah, so I think the big role that Congress can play is looking at how the abuse and the misuse of nationwide injunctions in particular is happening, and to craft. I've seen a couple of different proposals out there that I think are very good proposals that we ought to consider, and I'm hoping Judiciary picks them up. I know Mike Lee's got a good one, and Darrell Ice has got a new one out there that will either do away with a district court's ability to do a nationwide injunction, or at least have a 3-judge panel that, if you're going to do something nationwide that's outside of state boundaries of the federal district court that they're sitting in, that you'd have to go to a 3-judge panel to do that. I think those are appropriate legislative activities for us to get involved with, to say, hey, this is not working the way it was originally intended, and some judges are going further in their injunctions than what we really intended originally, or maybe it's just a misapplication of what they know they need to do, and some of that will get unwound by a review of appellate courts on those injunctions, and some of it will get undone pretty quickly. Some of it will take some time to unwind, and that's unfortunate. But there is a judicial process and an appellate review process that provides for undoing bad decisions. Some of it's on de novo review, some of it's on abuse of discretion review type standard. And so the legal process in a lot of these ways will work itself out. I'm disappointed that some judges would overreach. I think we've got to be real cognizant about separation of powers and make sure that we are allowing each branch to do their function in government. Ultimately, long term, that's going to be the best play for the American people and the preservation of those institutions, all of which have a very important role to play.
Well, I agree with that, and there is the separation of powers, obviously. But it just seems like judges at this lower level shouldn't be able to exercise this much authority over the functioning of the White House, just from just a normal citizen.
Yeah, practically speaking, I think everybody would agree with that. Currently, that's the way the law is written, and so that's why I say some of these new legislative proposals are really worth looking at to see if we can't figure out how to get around a single federal district judge from overruling
Yeah.
the president on a nationwide basis. And a three-judge panel, I think, is probably a really good suggestion to look at, to have some kind of expedited review, possibly even to the Supreme Court, to make sure that we're not getting the battle of a lower level federal district court
Yeah.
in a very liberal jurisdiction that was maybe handpicked as a forum that was friendly to somebody to issue an injunction that would undo an appropriate executive order or appropriate executive action.
Gotcha. Look, one of the big issues, obviously, at election time was the border. President Trump certainly seems to have gained control of that in short order, which shows us the real problem over the last 4 years. But talk about a little bit about that, and then we'll just start with that. Talk about the border.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't shocked, but I mean, it was sort of shocked by the numbers that came out in February. So the first full month that President Trump was in office, there were like 8,000, maybe 8,400 encounters at the border. That was compared to a year before, the February of 2024. It was like 189,000 encounters at the border just in that 1 month. And you look at it's like, I don't know, 25-fold difference in that. And all of that was because of strong presidential executive action. President Trump said it in the State of the Union address, I thought, as well or better than anybody else has said it. And he said, so many people were saying what we needed was congressional action to secure the border. Turns out all we really needed was a new president. And he's exactly right, because I've been preaching, we were ahead of the game on this with HR2 from the House of Representatives standpoint. But of course, HR2 from last time, our strong border security bill, went nowhere in the Senate because it was democratically controlled. And we had been preaching for a year and a half after we passed that. All the president has to do is exercise appropriate authority under Section 212F of the INA and to say, for national security reasons, we're closing the border. He had the executive authority to do it. Past presidents, Republicans and Democrats, had done it. President Biden refused to do it. President Trump came in on day one and did it. And as a result of that, as a result of appropriate, strong executive action to enforce the laws that were currently on the books, didn't even need new laws to do it, we shut down the border effectively. Now, we need to codify a lot of what's been happened so that we make sure that future presidents that want to have an open border policy cannot do it. We want to secure the border long term with legislative action. I think you're going to see that happening in the next year. We're going to see a strong border security bill come through.
Well, that's good to hear. But of course, the next step after getting control of the border is finding all the illegal immigrants that are currently in the country. He's doing great work on that. But then, of course, the judges step in there and they try to stop that. And where does that battle stand between deporting these folks and fighting those lower court judges?
Again, a lot of that I think is going to be resolved on appellate review. I know we had the district court case that came out that prevented us sending back a number of Venezuelan illegal immigrants, and there were some problems with some decisions on the Guantanamo Bay issue as well. But a lot of that's going to get resolved through the judicial process. And remember, this is the system the framers set up. Our constitutional framers set it up to have three branches of government, three co-equal branches of government. And we want to make sure that we are allowing each branch to function fully the way it should. This would not be the first time a federal district court judge got something wrong. And it certainly won't be the last time. And it won't be the first time that a federal district judge opinion gets overruled by an upper court. So I think you're going to see upper courts set some standards and undo some of what's going on. You're going to see some legislative action, like I talked about earlier, getting in the middle of this to say, we don't want to see this abuse of discretion in the future. And so let's narrow the scope of maybe these nationwide injunctions.
That discretion did seem a little extreme, though, when the one judge ordered the planes that were taking folks out of the country to turn around. That was a little extreme to me.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. But again, wasn't the first bad decision a judge has made, and it won't be the last one. And we've got lots of great federal judges around the nation that do a fabulous job in our judiciary, and it's very imperative that the judiciary remain independent. And I'm a strong proponent of an independent judiciary. And I think that, even though we're upset about some of these decisions, they're going to get rectified through the judicial process as they go through. We've got a very conservative Supreme Court. They're going to step in, and they're going to unwind the unconstitutional actions, or the actions that are beyond the pale of where the law allows for the district court to go. But we've got to allow that judicial process to work itself out.
All right, look, we got about 5 minutes left. I could talk to you for hours. I really could. But first thing I want to ask you about is you mentioned it a minute ago, and that was President Trump's address, his address before the nation. It wasn't an official State of the Union, but that's really what it was. And the behavior, first of all, I thought it was a great speech. And then second of all, I thought the reaction from the left was not very good. It was a bad look for them, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a terrible look for them, and whoever was providing strategic advice to them, political advice to them on how to behave at the State of the Union, needs to get fired. If I was a Democrat, I would have fired that political operative that gave advice to the Democrats on how to behave. They didn't escort the president in, which is just a matter of form and proper decorum. They wouldn't even do that. They wouldn't stand throughout the entire event, even in those moments that were so critical to stand for in a united front. And even when you're talking about a 13-year-old kid that has survived cancer, and we're trying to honor him at this event, they wouldn't even stand for that. And that's very despicable because at these events, when President Biden was speaking, I didn't heckle President Biden. I stood at appropriate times when he said things that I agreed with. That are patriotic, national, unifying themes that we should all agree on.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats wouldn't do that. And then you got Al Green that even is going beyond that and making sure that he's going to make himself known. And I think that's what he was trying to do, was just get a little attention to act worse than everybody else. But it backfired on them. The American people realized how horrible that behavior was. And they recognized the substance of the speech that President Trump was given, and how great it was, and how much on target it was with what the American people want to see happen. And so the Democrats not only alienated themselves further, I think, but they were deaf to the election results in November of what the true call of the American people is, and that is get government out of our lives and reduce spending and reduce the debt and secure our border and quit with all the idiotic social policies that the Democrats have been pushing in the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and get back to what American values really are. I think President Trump has a better sense of that than frankly, any president in a long time. He's so connected to the American people. And the Democrats have a deaf ear to that, and frankly, they're not doing themselves any favors.
Yeah, you mentioned Al Green. That behavior even carried through to when Speaker Johnson was reading the Censure Act, right?
Yeah, it did. He doubled down. Al and some of his cohorts doubled down on the bad behavior and singing, songs and trying to make this out to be a racial issue when it wasn't. Anybody that watches that knows that was horrible behavior, and a censure was completely appropriate for Al Green in that moment for what he did, because he dishonored the institution. He dishonored the office of the president. Again, regardless of who's in there, you need to provide honor and dignity for the event and for the office. I've done that for the Democratic president, and you'd expect Democrats to do that for a Republican president, and he did not.
Well, I would say good for you, of course. appropriate behavior is always appropriate. So last minute or two here, what's going on in Texas? What's going on in your district of East Texas?
First District of Texas is doing great. I'm always just so pleased to be out and about within the district, talking to folks, visiting with businesses. What they are telling me these days is this: is what I'm hearing across the board is they are desperate to see us get this reconciliation package right. They are worried about the tax implications long term. If taxes go up next year on individuals and on businesses, they don't want to see it happen. And in addition to that, there is equally concerned with, or more concerned with, the regulatory burdens that the Biden administration had buried them with over the last 4 years. They love seeing what Trump is doing to take those burdens off by executive action, but they want to see legislative policy to follow to codify this so that they don't have to worry about it shifting every 4 years back and forth. Businesses need surety, and they need to be able to plan long term. They need stability in the laws and in the application of the laws. For the economy to grow, businesses cannot have governmental risk at the forefront of their mind. They need governmental surety. That's what the free market is supposed to provide. But unfortunately, the last 4 years, we haven't seen that. They want to get back to that. They want the free market to drive what their business success is. And that's what they're telling me is work hard to get this tax bill right, this reconciliation package right, bring our spending down so that the debt market doesn't get out of control, and so that our stock market doesn't crash, and so that we have great long-term economic stability.
I'll end with this. A couple of tax questions. Are we gonna get the no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security? Are those going to happen?
I'll be shocked if we don't get that, because these are top priorities for the president, and we are working diligently to find a way to include them in the tax bill and to find offsets and pay-fors so that we can not increase the debt stack on top of the current $37 trillion worth of debt. Because it's going to cost us money to do those things, but we need to find a way to do them because they're priorities of the president. He campaigned on them. He promised the American people he would deliver, and we want to stand with him in doing that.
Well, we know with you up there working for us, we got a shot at it. So we appreciate that. All right, listen.
My pleasure, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. It's been great. I hope we can do it down the line again sometime. Is that okay with you?
Always love being here and appreciate what you guys are doing, and I hope things are going well for you.
They are so far. With guests like you, it makes them even better. Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate that. Congressman Nathaniel Moran from the East Texas, the 1st District of Texas. He's been our guest today on this edition of the app, ArkLaTex People and Politics. You can get it on wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on all KTBS digital channels. Thanks for watching this edition of the app. Have a good one.